Well, bonjour, comment allez-vous, and je vais très bien. Hey, how's everybody? And we welcome you to We Talk tonight. First of all, in our usual fashion, we got to toast up. So here's to everybody on the line, and we hope that you're having a great week so far. And if not, we're here to make it better. And if you've been here before, you already know how we do that, okay? We give you inspiration, motivation, and all of that stuff to get you going so you can carry out and finish out the rest of the week, all right? Hey, Carter. All right. Hey, Brayron, how are you? All right. Caesar, how you doing? So here's to everybody on the line. And before I bring my co-host on, if you joined us last week, you know that we talked about whether or not love was a feeling or a choice. And I'm telling you, we had a great discussion. And if you missed it, I would highly, highly, highly recommend that you go check that out. Whether or not love is a feeling or a choice. You have a choice. Once that feeling hits you, you don't even have a choice. You just have to go with it and flow and go wherever it takes you. But you'll find out the answers, okay? Hey, thanks for the flash go, all right? Hey, Pretty, how are you? All right, let me go ahead and invite my co-host on so we can get this party started. Oh, tonight, I know most of you may not be familiar with this, but we're going to be talking about redlining. What redlining is. You may be affected by it and you don't even know. So we're going to bring some information to you. Hopefully that it'll help you understand what it is. And if you're ever involved in a situation where you are being discriminated against because of all of those different things, race, color, sex, ethnicity, religion, all of those things, you can identify it and do something about it. All right, so hold tight real quick. First of all, go ahead and nurse your drinks because you need to kind of coat your throats so this thing can go down a little easier. All right. Hey, Miss O'Neill.
Hey, how you doing?
How are you?
I am doing awesome, awesome, awesome. I am so glad to be off work. Ooh, Jesus, you just don't know.
And you're blessed, okay?
Yes, I am.
All right. All right. So your week has been going so far, being that you don't have to report in?
Yeah, it is. I've been able to declutter at home and stuff like that. Just enjoy my own space. You know what I'm saying? Just you just don't know.
I know exactly how that is. I know exactly.
I love them kids, but I'm glad to have a break at least for 4 or 5 weeks because we go back at the end of July.
Oh,
They be cheating us.
that's kind
They
of
be
quick,
cheating.
huh? I mean, I've been out so long, I don't know if that's quick or not, but it seems kind of
Nobody
quick.
asked you. We talking about normal people.
I know that. I'm just saying. I'm trying to see is July, is that normal? What is that, like 30 days since you've been out? You get 30 days
Um,
off?
well, we got out at the end of the last day of May, and then we go back the end of July. I think they be cheating us,
Oh, well, that's good. If you got out the end of May, that gives you 60 days almost, right?
but we be working 180 though. That ain't even. I'm just playing. Now, I'll be glad to have any
You
day off.
always, all
I love
right.
my job. I love my
All
job.
right.
I do miss the kids. So let's just move on. So I'm gonna start missing them after a while.
All right. Hey, Mitch, what's happening, brother? Glad to see you. All right. Hey, AR official signing. Okay. Well, hope you might meet somebody in here that needs a record deal or whatever it is you do. I don't know, but you're in the right place. Hey, M46, how are you? Carlos, how are you? And what is that? Farisa? You know what I'm trying to say, but we welcome you too. Hey, honey, what's happening? But anyway, let's get to it. All right, listen. Now, a lot of you may not understand what this topic is, and you might think it's going to be boring. But once we get to the meat of it, I mean, y'all know how we flip things around. It's gonna be very interesting. It's gonna be very interesting. So we're talking about redlining, and we're gonna define its history and how we can identify it. Because I'm here to tell you, there are a lot of people who are affected by it and they don't even know it. All right? So, in a nutshell, and first of all, more importantly, how can we purchase the home or rent an apartment or whatever we're trying to get, regardless of this practice? So, if someone is trying to keep you out from a place based on those things that I just mentioned, those discriminatory things, then there are some ways that you can get around that. Now, me personally, if somebody's trying to keep me out, I don't know if I want to stay there anyway. You know, it's just a double-edged sword for me. If they're trying to keep me out and they don't want me in there, then I don't want to be there anyway. That's just me. All right. So here's the only problem that I really have with it, because I know people who have been affected by it. You know, when you go and you try to rent somewhere, they want you to pay 3 times the rent. I'm not pay, but half. Hey, what's going on, Keith?
Hey, what's up, guys?
All right. But yeah, they want you to have at least 3 months rent in a lot of cases. At least that's the way it is in Georgia. And if you're buying a home and you're looking to get something in a nice, safe area, they want a large down payment. Now, my issue is this: a lot of people can't afford it, but I understand it and I know how it is. But we're going to give y'all some secrets to how you get around that stuff. So the question I want to ask: do we really think it's fair for the average person to have 3 times the rent? That's in your bank, right?
No, they want you to make 3 times the rent. But the thing is, you can make 3 times the rent on paper, but that's not your actual livable income. That's what I don't like. You know, like you can make $4,000 or $5,000 a month, but after taxes and this, that, and the third, you know, that's not your true livable income, and that's where it starts being unfair, because they want to go by before all of that. Well, you know,
Yeah, but I guess what I'm trying to get across is the fact that they require you to have that. They require you to have that, whether or not you can afford it or not. We're going to talk about that too, but I'm saying to qualify, you've got to make 3 times the rent. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes, yes.
So when you walk into the office, right, and the rent is $1,000, you got to be able to show that you make $3,000, right?
They want you to make 3 times the rent.
That's just crazy to me. But
I mean, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I think that's really not fair. It's not a fair practice, and I think it keeps a lot of low income or minority people. I think it keeps us at bay, because they know that, you know, a lot of us can't. You know, that's not possible.
you got a lot of background noise. I don't know what that is, but yeah. I agree with you, because a lot of times when you're looking for a nice place to stay, it's going to be where the rent is going to be substantial. I mean, this is my feelings. I think anybody who has a decent income, right, and has credit worthiness, they deserve to stay in a place that's safe and a place that's nice. So to me, that's a discriminatory practice, and I know it's legal where they require 3, 4 times. In some places, when I was doing the research, they require 4 times. Someone told me when I was putting this thing together that in California it's almost 5, 6 times. So that is crazy.
That's just crazy. I mean, and I know that there's ways around that, but I mean, still, that's just a crazy thing to put out there for people. That just limits people in their hopes and stuff as where they can live. That's a decent place or decent area. It's just crazy to me.
Well, even when
Yeah.
you do have some of those parameters, remember, you also have those situations where if you're renting, I know out here in Jersey, they'll require a lot of times first month's rent plus a security deposit. So that security deposit, yeah, that security deposit is going to be probably at least about 2 months rent. So let's say hypotheticals, let's say you're just for hypothetical example, let's say your rent is $1,000 a month. Your security deposit would probably be 2,000 or 2,500 or something like that. But you got to put that full amount up. So like you're coming into it, even if you're trying to get into a new situation, a lot of people don't have that lump sum money to put out even for that. You know what I'm
That's what
saying?
I'm saying.
It's like that here. It's like that here.
What'd you say?
That's my problem.
I was saying it's like that here too.
Yeah, they had the security deposit, but there's reasons that they do it. I understand, but it basically, if you're renting, for example, for the sake of the example, the rent is $1,000 a month, you might have to pay $3,000 to $4,000 just to get in there the first month, and then you still got to turn around the next month and pay that $1,000 because the security deposit isn't towards the rent, and you already paid the first month's rent. So the second month you got to pay $1,000. Yeah.
That is just crazy to me, man. I don't I'm not a believer in rent, but when I was younger, yeah, I used to rent apartments and things of that nature. But now that I understand how the system works, it's always better if you can afford it to try to purchase something. At least you're going to build up some equity or something like that. But to require somebody like you just said to have 4,000, you got to be making some real good money. And I don't know what the places are like up there, Keith. They have some nice areas here, but they also have some that aren't so nice, and they require the same thing.
Oh yeah, they require the same thing. And the worse the area, the more scrutiny they're going to want up front because people be running, don't be paying their rent on time, don't do all the different things that they need to do. In certain areas out here, yeah, you got people paying $5,000 to $6,000 a month in rent.
Wow, that is crazy to me, man. That's a mini mansion in some places. I just can't see it, man. I'm trying. That's why I wanted to do this because I want to make sense of it. When you're paying $5,000 in rent,
that could be a mortgage.
Huh?
I said that could be a mortgage payment.
Absolutely. But the dilemma that most people find themselves in, especially when they're starting out, you cannot qualify for a home just based on your salary. So there's a lot of different other particulars. I won't get into that. It goes into that. So it's discriminatory in a way because you don't have any other option when you're starting out. Unless you're gonna put it in your baby's name and if your credit messed up, you put it in your child's name and all that kind of foolishness. But I'm just talking about for the legitimate people who are really hustling and who are really trying to better themselves and get in a better position. I think we put them at a disadvantage when all that money is required up front and just to show it. You know what I mean? Now, whether or not they use it or not is besides the point to me. If I've got to interrupt my lifestyle and I'm already on pins and needles anywhere, if I'm trying to get a spot, when you're trying to get a spot, there are incidentals that you have to cover and you ain't even moved in. So that's crazy to me. But
and we not to mention. Oh, let me say hey to Malia. Malia watching me from her daddy's phone. My grandbaby. Hey, Malia.
Hey, Malia. How are you?
She a mess, honey. She want to see us on TV. But when you start talking about the incidentals, they don't. I mean, and I think they know. But incidentals includes things you can't live without. Your lights, your gas, your this, your that. It's crazy at how
And look, don't they have deposits for that too? You gotta have
ain't no out here, man. Listen, if you rent out here, you gotta pay for your own water bill, your own utilities, your own everything. So you gotta pay the rent plus those things. Yeah.
Let me tell you, over where I live now, they make you pay for the lights outside. The 18. I mean, it's everything, and they know that they can do this. That's the thing, that there's nothing to protect people. Even though we're talking about this and we're saying ways around it, they know that there's nothing to protect people from having to do these things. That's the thing.
Well,
So
here's
you
the
mean to
other thing
tell
too.
me, you mean to
Here,
tell me, now I understand your light that's, most houses and
Lights
apartments,
outside. It actually say that on my lease included in the rent. $18 for the garbage and $10 for the lights outside. And then if you want them to carry bulk items, if you want the people to carry bulk items, you gotta call to make arrangements with the waste company, and that's another $20-$30 a load, like a
that is
item. You know what
crazy,
I'm saying?
man.
So I mean, it's crazy.
That is crazy. Hey, Teddy. Hey, Frog.
well,
Hey,
also
Dave.
too with the rent, I know out here where I'm at, we're in a metropolitan area in a sense, so a lot of it is geographic based as well. If a person is renting in an upscale area, and then obviously when you start talking about getting closer to New York and things of that nature, you have a lot of people that may work in New York City, but they live in Jersey. Okay, and they may rent a condo, they may, whatever. So some of these rent prices are also that high because they also know they can get it in that prime area. And then obviously somebody who's working on Wall Street, they can afford $6,000 a month in rent, if it saves them in their commute or whatever the case may be, or even some people that rent in New York City, so everybody has their reasons
Yeah.
for what they do. It is crazy. And here's the other thing about a security deposit. I know when I used to rent, the security deposit you're supposed to get it back when you leave, right? But what they do is
Oh,
when they
well,
check,
you
right, they
don't
can
do
check
that.
and say, oh, the carpet, we got to clean the carpet, we got to
Oh,
paint
yeah.
the wall, we got to do this, do that. And they subtract that from your security deposit. So you
Oh,
put
yeah.
up XYZ in the beginning, you might not leave with it. And you left everything in good condition. Man, they get you all
But
types of
that's
ways,
why I
man.
take pictures. Listen, I had to fight a complex with that, and Greg knows about that because he had to help me with rats. I went all the way to the mayor of Gwinnett County, baby, and and they had to give me my deposit back. You couldn't charge. I took pictures and everything.
Yeah.
It's a fight. It's a
Oh,
way
yeah.
around that too, but it's a fight. But the sad thing is that if people don't know how to fight it or get around it, as we're talking about, they get lost in translation.
And that's why we're having this so we can tell them why. Hey, Mandy Pretty and Tommy and uh, Willie and Lisa. How are you
Yeah.
all? Come
And then
on in.
also don't be part of an HOA where they have a homeowners association group too, because you got those fees too outside of all the other stuff we talk about. You got the HOA fees.
Man, don't
Yeah.
talk about it, HOA, man. I'm so.
Yeah.
Couple both places where I have it's just crazy, man. And then it's minimal. I can see if they were really doing area beautification and really doing other thing more than lawn. You know what I'm saying? And you got you $300 a quarter. twelve
Hmm.
hundred dollars a year to have somebody mow your lawn. That's crazy. And
Trim
even
the
in
shrubs real quick.
gated communities, right? You would figure that the shrubbery. Now, I'm not saying you got to cut my shrubbery that's near the house, but if it's encased in the yard closer to the street, I would think that you would do that for $300 a month. I mean, a quarter. But it's crazy. They don't do it, and it's just I don't understand it, man. Hey, big bro, how are you? But let's get on into it. All right, redlining is a discriminatory practice where banks, lenders, insurers, or even government agencies deny or limit loans. Now that happened, and I'm going to give you the history in a minute. Mortgages, insurance, or other financial services in certain neighborhoods, they did it overwhelmingly because it was based largely on the racial or ethnic makeup of the residents. So in redline, let me get to it, then we'll discuss it a little bit of how, because it always touches a nerve with me. I wasn't affected by it, but I know those that came before me was, and people still today, because people capitalize on ignorance. And that's why we here at We Talk, we like to give you information that you can use. You may not absorb it all tonight, but when you are involved in a situation, at least you can go back and review this if you follow us on Facebook, and you can pick up those pointers to make sure yourself is safe. So the term comes from the 1930s. That's when this first came into being. When the federal government's homeowners loan corporation created maps. Can you imagine that? Now this part of the federal government, and what are we saying? We the people. Now, there ain't no people when you got these kind of practices at the level of the government that is supposed to protect you. So when the federal government's homeowners loan corporation created those maps, it outlined neighborhoods in different colors. It outlined them in different colors. The reason I say all of this is because we must know and understand the past to create a better future. If you don't know what happened in the 1930s, because with technology and all of these different methods that can camouflage things, if you're not aware of what happened then, you're not going to be looking out for this stuff. And it could very well happen to you. So here's how it worked. Redlining was used to discriminate against minorities by systematically restricting their access to mortgages, home loans, insurance, and other financial services. And that was regardless of an individual's financial position. They could qualify, and they still would do it based on color, creed, sexual orientation, race, all of those different religion, all of those different things were used when they drew these red lines. In the 1930s, the homeowners loan corporation created residential maps that graded the neighborhoods for lending risk. Now listen, I don't have any problem with people protecting their own interests. I don't have any problem with that. And I would do the same if I was a homeowner. I don't want just anybody living in my spot. I've been renting for over 30, 40 years. And you have to be very careful who you rent or lease your places to. But when it comes to those discriminatory practices that do it for no other reasons but based on racial inequality and discrimination, then we have an issue. Neighborhoods with significant black populations and other minority communities, so it wasn't just happening to blacks, it was happening to Hispanics, Native Americans, Indians, any minority group. When they had significant black population and other minority communities, they were often marked in red. That's where redlining comes from. They were marked in red and labeled as, check this out, hazardous investments. So as a result of them identifying those areas and marking them as hazardous, most banks refuse to issue mortgages in those areas. Home buyers were denied loans or offered less favorable terms than other people. Homeowners had difficulty refinancing or obtaining home improvement loans. Now, that's one thing. Once you get into banking and understanding money, and before I forget, Keith, that thing on cryptocurrency, I got it as somebody, and we might have some interest in that. All right.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So, but they were unable to refinance. After you have a home for so long, you're going to have to make investments into that home to keep it near market value. So they weren't allowing minority members to get loans for home improvements or mortgages to purchase homes. Businesses found it harder to secure financing in those neighborhoods. So even businesses that wanted to establish themselves in those neighborhoods, since they were red line districts, the banks, the mortgage companies, and the lenders wouldn't even give them loans. And they didn't necessarily have to be minority. They just wouldn't allow it. Why? Because they said it was a hazardous investment. Now, let me tell you why this is all so important. We have to understand this. Home ownership is one of the primary ways families build their wealth in the United States. Home ownership is one of the primary ways families build their wealth in America. It's one of the most expensive investments most people make in their lifetime. So redlining had long-term consequences, and we all must acknowledge that. Redlining had, and we feel those consequences even today as minority members, whether or not you like it or not, or whether or not you address it or not. You know, there's some of us who made it above the poverty line, and we've done well. But it doesn't mean nothing. Not when everybody else has to go through the same thing that your ancestors died for and they were discriminated against. And you figure in 2026, most of that stuff would be resolved. There would be more leniency. Now, don't get me wrong, there's been some improvement. But ain't nobody got that 40 acres and a mule yet.
Oh, I'm glad you said that because I was just finna say that. You know, I be messing that up. I be like, give me my mule and acres or whatever the situation may be. But you know what? It's even though we don't still use those terms or they don't have that written on those maps like that now per se. I mean, it's still there. They just find other ways to implement those kind of things, you know.
Absolutely.
In today's society, you know, and they probably do have a map somewhere with the different colors on it and whatever, you know, y'all. We don't know now. They just ain't gonna use red. They might use another color, you know. But that's where the ignorance comes in, and that's why it's important for you to know these things. You know, they even offer different homes to different people at higher interest rates and all of this kind of stuff. You know, and they say about your credit, but then okay, you could have a 600 or 700. I mean, a 700, 800 credit score, but then they'll be like, oh, but even though your credit score is this, you got this on there. That don't need to be on there. So you know, they always find different things to knock you out the box. You know.
And they still ain't found a way to give us them the rest of them Epstein files.
They ain't gonna find that way. They ain't gonna find a way for that. And that's another thing. The people with the money and the riches and the family, things like that, they always get second, third, and fourth chances, you know, with everything. So absolutely. We just have to realize that we're at a stage in our life, and when we talk about, you know, ethnicity and rights or whatever, this will never be our America. You know, we can say that all day, but It'll never be. You
Hey,
know.
Angel, and hey,
So
what's the
that
name?
part.
Goddess, how are you? Barbella, how are you? Angel, I think I said that. Yeah, it's kind of disappointing, man. And the reason I say that is because you've got what, I don't know how many years from the 1930s up until now, and it still hasn't been corrected to the point of where there's a significant improvement in the procedures. So, hey, it is what it is. We just have to educate ourselves and find ways to get what we want. And the bottom line is you can't quit just because someone does not accept it. There are people that will, and there are ways that you can get around things, which we're going to discuss. So listen, residents had less access to investment and economic development, generational wealth that could have been passed to children and grandchildren was reduced. Now, see, that's what we're talking about. When we start talking about all these different practices, that's why I kind of was playing when I mentioned the 40 acres and a mule, because I know I was coming to this point. So when you look at the practices, look at all the generational wealth that has been taken away and denied certain people.
I get that part too. I mean, I get that part too, and of course that's most important. But when we look at the educational system, like when we were growing up in math, you actually learned how to balance a checkbook. You actually learned, with pen and paper how to do certain things. But they count on a lot of people being ignorant to the fact of those simple practices. So you don't know if somebody taking your money. You don't know if somebody taking advantage of you, and things like that. We were taught, how to save. We were taught how to do these. Now everybody just pick up they little what do they call them in school? The little Chromebooks and stuff like that. They don't have teachers and chalkboards and things like that to really teach you where they depend on all this other stuff to teach when it's not really teaching. It's not teaching the importance of having money, saving, and buying a home. We actually had to model buying a home in school. You know what I'm saying? So nowadays they don't put those practices in there. And then number two, people have just stopped fighting. People don't have that grit in them anymore. They be and y'all know what, I ain't got nothing against Martin Luther King and things like that, because he made a great impact in our society, but sometimes you got to go a little bit farther than that. You got to be a little bit harder than that. Fine, you be that later,
Your
but get
guy Malcolm X there.
yeah, that's Malcolm and Hugh H. Rap Brown and all them. That's where you got to go for me. Not none of that other stuff. People have just given up, the fight in them about buying homes, about being treated equally and things like that. We got to bring Malcolm X back and H. Rap Brown and all them people back, because the Martin Luther thing don't be working, especially with the little orange man we got up in there. The little orange man and all them other people. But okay.
Yeah, yeah, it's wild. It's wild. Hey, Amy. Hey, Derek. Yeah, that's kind of sad. But if you really think about it, listen, it's no different than having a race and you giving someone, 50 yards ahead of you to start. It's no different than that. So even though we have programs now that allow certain people to participate, it still doesn't make up for all the time and the wealth that was stripped from the beginning. Can you imagine those people who were denied those certain rights and those, particularly, and I'm only talking about property, who were denied ownership, if they would have gotten that piece of land, do you imagine how much money, how much wealth that all of those people would have generated up until today? A lot of people don't like to talk about it because it's a sad story, but I don't care. It's a sad story that still hasn't been corrected, so we need to discuss it. If we can go and build a skyscraper or UFC arena for millions and millions of dollars and give other countries billions and billions of dollars, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that because we've got access and asset of resources. How do we expect things to ever be fair? They aren't going to be fair until those systems and that retribution is rectified. You can make all the money you want. If the circumstances doesn't change within the society in which you live, you just got a bunch of money. And anytime someone can change the rules, the value of that money is dictated by those who have the power to do so. So don't get too high up. If we're not talking about, that's why in commodities, and Keith would tell you, we emphasize making sure that you own things that have value and maintain your value in commodities. Gold, land, diamonds, fuel, all of those different things that make the world go round. You see what happened when the Strait of Hormuz was closed. Everything came to a standstill, and that's only fuel, and that's only in one part of the world.
But see, that's what I'm talking about when we be talking about, gold and, diamonds and commodities. And my favorite word, paymaster. Don't forget that. Paymaster and control.
We ain't gonna
My
forget
favorite
it.
word. It's like when you start, and because I have had conversations with people and I talk about, what other kind of investments or what other kind of, and when you say move currency, like what kind of currency do you move and things like that, that's foreign to a lot of minority people. And the thing is, a lot of minority people don't really think you can have those kind of things. You say that, oh, you just talking, you don't know nothing about that, or we ain't gonna get that. That's where the problem comes in. You have to want to elevate yourself above the red lines. Raise the bar.
Hey,
And people.
the Georgian, we don't worry about the naysayers. We
Yeah,
never
no, but I'm
worry
saying,
about
I
the
know
naysayers.
that, but I'm just saying when you start talking about that and you hear people, oh, that's impossible. No, it's impossible because you make it impossible. It's possible for me, and I just think if a lot of people, got used to different things and different terminology like that and knowing that there's something else out there other than a 9 to 5. What I do on social media and when we go public speaking, go out and do the public speaking and this and that, and the word gets out, and 2 or 3 people want us to come speak now and things like that. That's what it takes to get above the red lines, to raise the bar, and if we don't raise the bar, then who will raise the bar? Who's gonna raise the bar?
But I'm saying we don't ever listen. There, and you're right, because a lot of times people become victims of their circumstances, and they're restricted by their educational level. So when we start talking commodities and we start talking diamonds, gold, iron ore, nickel wire, crude oil, all of the Dory bars, versus bullion and all of those different things. It's going to fall on somebody. Those are the ones that we're concerned with. Those who we spark that interest in, those are the ones that we help, because you can't help everybody. Some people aren't ready. Remember last week I said it. Most people got to see results before they even pay you any mind at all. If they don't see it, but then I don't want those people around me. If I've got to show you, look, here's $100 million.
That's me.
Right. And that's the way you have to live your life. If I've got to show you $100 million for you to believe that it's possible for you or me or the clique that we're developing to make it, then you're the wrong one for it. You're the wrong one, so I don't waste a lot of time with those people. Because if you do, trust and believe what I'm saying. I've been in business for a very long time. If you pay any attention to those people, it will drain you. It will steal all your energy. And not only that, it will steal your happiness. Now, we are all emotional creatures, so we need to feel good. We need that pleasure button pushed in our lives. So if you're dealing with people who are stealing that pleasure and that happiness from you, if you keep them around, I guarantee you won't prosper, you won't move far at all, because they drain you. And I'm saying that from my experience, they will drain you if you allow them. But you should never do that, all right?
And they block your blessings.
They block your blessings as well. Yeah. Hey, LaShavis. Hey,
well, here's the other part that I'll add to what Mr. G said, is that we talk about these things, these exclusive clubs of commodities and paymasters, as the Joya likes to say, and all those things. The thing is, it's a private network, so you got to be invited in, Absolutely. So that's why when Mr. G talks about people who show interest, it's not like we're looking for curious people and we're looking to build a team of, commodities people. That's not what he's saying. He's talking about the people that are kind of already in their movement already. They're already figuring things out on their own because they made a decision. You know what? I got exposed to this world a little bit. I want to see how deep the rabbit hole goes. And that's where you bump into the Mr. G's, the Joyas, and people like that. You don't bump into them sitting at your house, you know what I'm saying, playing video games. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you are absolutely right. Hey, Digibooks, glad to see you again, my man. All right. And hey, Caden, how are you? Jaro, how are you? But yeah, so we have to understand that in order to be better, you have to do something different. You can't continuously do the same thing over and over and expect a different result. So when we're talking about this redlining and how people use discriminatory practices to keep you out of certain areas, has nothing to do with your income in a lot of cases, and you can qualify, but they use those discriminatory practices to keep you out because they have their own prejudice that they use, and they're the ones in charge. I don't care what nobody say. You can have all the goodness in your heart. If you don't have the power to move it, you're ineffective and it means nothing. You have to have the power to move. And then where does power come from? Power comes in numbers in everything that we do. So let me ask, does redlining still exist today? All right. Officially, and that's the operative word, officially, redlining is illegal under laws such as the Fair Housing Act and the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. So it is illegal. As the Georgia said, they ain't got the maps no more. So they don't have them sitting out or under their desk when you walk in, but there are other ways. So here's the caveat. However, consumers, regulators, researchers, and courts have found evidence that forms of discrimination still occur. All these different people, consumers, regulators, researchers, and courts have found that it still exists today. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to do this live. Now let me give you some ways that you can identify that it still exists. Because it's marked by certain things. Number one, higher mortgage denial rates in some minority neighborhoods. Now listen, a lot of people won't do this, but I'm an old personnel guy from the military and a business major, human resources major. So I like to research and I like to investigate things on my own to whatever ability that I have and whatever resources are available to me. So nobody goes out and checks the rent or the mortgages in neighborhoods that are similar to theirs. I do. If I buy $1 million home, of course you can tell $1 million homes because they're all about the same level in those neighborhoods. But if you go outside of that neighborhood and you find another $1 million community, make the comparisons because you may be overpriced. Don't get caught up when people say, oh, you can't afford it. When you can get in there, you can afford it. When people start talking to you that way, I'll automatically dismiss that. Because if I've got $1 million to move in, or if I've got $1 million in the bank, I can get in here. But I also want to know the neighboring neighborhood, $1 million neighborhoods, how much is that mortgage? What's the fair market value of that home? So I encourage people, check neighboring neighborhoods to see whether or not that price is fair. Now, let me tell you this. Now, I've been in situations where I've checked and they made exceptions for me. That's me. So that does not change everybody. And I'm one of those people, I like to see everybody do well. I like to try to impart all kind of information to help people do better. So when I'm affected and I get over, that doesn't do a whole lot for me. I mean, I feel good because I did the work to make sure you're not chewing me out of my money. But I sit back and I look at it, I wonder how many people are in this neighborhood and don't even realize that they're overpriced. So that's the kind of attitude that we need to have. All right. Hey, Robert. Hey, Stan. And who is that? Axwa, how are you? All right. Sashiba, how are you? Hey, but those are the things that we have to start looking out for. Higher mortgage denial rates in some minority neighborhoods. So you go into a neighborhood and you see that a whole bunch of minority members are being disapproved or denied rates, good mortgage rates, then you might have some discriminatory practices going on.
But that's crazy because I was just saying, over in the neighborhood where I am is 1675, but then right next door, like in the next little one over, my son told me he just seen one for 1385. Wow. And I'm like, wait a minute, all these is still this. I mean, it's the same two bedrooms.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Two bedrooms, this and that. I mean, it just, and then when you look at the area, even though it's Peachtree Corners, just because you in Peachtree Corners, that don't mean that it's the creme de la creme of Peachtree Corners. You know what I mean? So I just look at it like that, and I'm like, wow, I can't believe that they doing this.
Oh yeah.
But it is what it is.
Yeah. They will do it, so, and a lot of times they would still borrowers, people who are borrowing money toward less favorable loan products. So you might go in and your credit score might say that you can get it at 3%. But if they deny you, they say, hey, you don't qualify at this institution, but we can do it at 5. So they will steer you toward a different product service. And that's not fair. Notice this part. There are fewer bank branches in certain communities. Now, why is that important? If banks aren't near you, you know that ain't no money coming in that particular area. If you got to drive 10, I ain't gonna say 10, 20, 30 minutes away to get to the nearest bank, then that's not an ideal location. Remember, we're talking about how do you identify these practices in these areas where these practices take place. Because if there's growth in the community, banks, businesses, politicians, they're going to come there. Trust and believe, they're going to come there. If you ain't got no bank there, that's one indicator, okay, I might not want to stay here. Unless you are smart enough to look at, have enough knowledge, there's such thing as your city planners, whatever city, state, county that you live in, you can check those records to see what the plan is in the next 10 years. You can see whether or not highways are coming through. You can see whether or not they're building malls. You can see whether or not they're bringing a Starbucks in. Now listen, when you see that Starbucks, oh yeah, it's about to be some changes. If it wasn't there before, when you see that Starbucks, that means money is coming. So if you got a piece of property in the slums, if you can hold on to it, hold on to it. Because somebody coming to make you offer real soon. All right? Now, property appraisal disparities. Now, I don't know how many on the live are homeowners, but when you go through your appraisal process, that's a big portion of purchasing a home. So when you got one appraisal that gives the value at this level for some people and a lower level for other people, that's a form of redlining. Now, how do you find out? Hey, look, you got to be friendly and savvy enough to get next to your neighbors, and you make friends and whatnot. Y'all know how to do it, especially women. You go take the cake over there and, establish that friendship and look on the side like, hey, how much did you pay? How much did your house appraise at? You keep that mental note that you have to be smart enough to outsmart those who think they're smarter than you. That's the bottom line. But that is a practice that's used. Now, you can have algorithmic or indirect lending practices that disproportionately affect certain groups. So the algorithm can show you that there were 10 minority groups that moved in. There were 3 non-minority. Their rates were a lot lower than all 10 of these. That's a disparity. So how can you, well, first of all, before I get into that, do any of my co-hosts have anything they want to add? Hey, Melba. Hey, Lee. And Crib, how are you? And there's Emeka. Glad to have all of you. All right, let me get into it since they don't want to say anything right now. Here are some of the warning signs. Being denied a mortgage or rent despite your strong income. I think DeJoya said this earlier. Despite your income level, your credit, and your debt ratio. So if you have all those three things intact and you're denied, then you know there's some redlining or some discriminatory practices going on. Receiving significantly worse long terms than similar qualified buyers. As I mentioned earlier, if you're going to let me get a loan for 7%, and they qualify and they get it for 4%, that might be a problem. And those points on a $1 million, $500,000 home, $1 million home is significant. That's a lot of money. I'm old school. I'm like this. I'm not going to pay any money out my pocket that I can use for something else. So in anything that I attack, or the approach that I make in buying cars, in buying homes, in buying vacation homes, I'm not going to, if someone say, hey, you need to make a down payment, my question is why? Why do I need to make a down payment? Has anybody ever thought about that? When you buy a car, why do you need to make a down payment? I'm not talking about people who's got jacked up credit and got all kind of repos and all of that kind of stuff. I'm talking about someone who has pristine credit, has a good job or income that they can actually legally show, and no derogatory information. Why do I have to put something down on this car? Make it make sense. I don't put nothing down. I use VA. That's another protecting agency for veterans. But even if you use consumer loans, you have to ask yourself, why is the dealership, if you're not, we're talking about people who's got good credit, people who are financially responsible, people who have established themselves in life, worked for 4 or 5 years. Why do you have to put something down on a vehicle? I'll let y'all think about that for a minute. I keep telling y'all this is educational. I'm giving y'all jewels because you don't have to put anything down. Now, when you walk in there, what they're going to tell you is, hey, you got to put 10% down, 20% down. You've become so accustomed to hearing that and saving up for that, that when you walk in there, you're already prepared to pay it. I can have $100,000 in the bank and buying a $50,000, $60,000 car. I'm not paying anything down. Check my bank, check my credit. Now, when it comes back, tell me what to say. And I'm not just blowing smoke up your butt. I've done this numerous times. And DeJoya, you know this because I come back with the stories. I've done it. It's funny after it's done because you have to be consistent and you have to be defiant. Like, no, why? And explain to me what is the reason. Now, if I got a 400 credit score, I'm not arguing with people. But if I got a 685, 700, 750, tell me why. I'm not a credit risk. All right. So those are two ways. Now, another way is this. Lenders showing little interest in properties located in a specific neighborhood. That's redlining area as well. When they don't show any interest in that area where you're trying to purchase, that might be redlining also. There's a large difference in the approval rates between neighborhoods with similar economic characteristics. That's why I was telling you, in those gated communities, you go into those gated communities, you pay $1 million, $1.5 million, $3 million, whatever. It would do you a world of good to circle the block, go around wherever the golf course is, and see those other homes and see what they sell for. Go just write down a random address, and you can go and research it yourself. You can go look in the county records. So, especially now with Google, you can go look and see what the fair market value is. Hey, Leon. And hey, Jax, it's glad to see you again. My boy, good to see you as well. Tamika, good to see you also. Now, also, if you compare offers from banks, credit unions, and mortgage brokers, you really can find out without doing a lot of research yourself. Because who wants to pay? This is, man, I'm telling you, it don't make sense to me. If I'm buying a home for $1.5 million, why do I want to pay $1.7 million? I don't want to do that because the value of the home is 1.5. So when you get with these lenders and these communities and these banking people, and because of these discriminatory practices, you're paying additional money for the same house. I did a deal one time, right? And I was selling what was it? A Mercedes, right? So I found somebody who wanted to purchase it. Now, I got a bargain on the car, and the reason I got it was because I wanted to sell it. So the car was like $80,000, right? So I got with one of my people, and I said, hey, if you know anybody who want to buy a car, I'm selling this, right? They said, cool. They came back to me. They changed the record. They checked the record. And they said, well, hey, Mr. G, they don't want to buy it because they say you only paid $50,000 for it. Now think about that. They said you only paid $50,000. Now that's the dumbest thing that someone could say to me, because number one, if the car is worth $80,000, I can sell it for $80,000. Is that not correct? Let me bring it home a little clearer for some of you all. If my mother gave me the car for $1, you find out that I got it for $1, that means I'm supposed to sell it to you for $1? So I'm trying to make sense. I'll give you all a little game in how to navigate when you're dealing with major purchases. You want to buy my car for the same thing I paid for. Who thinks like that? If the car is worth $80,000, check the blue book. Go check anywhere you want, your Carfax and all of that kind of stuff. And it checks out that the car is worth $80,000. If I paid $50,000 for it, does that mean I have to sell it to you for $50,000? Believe it or not, you got people that think that way. And my recommendation to you, get from around those fools, because they are fools. and you're never going to elevate or change your status. Now, so we're talking about the help portion of this situation when you get involved with it. There are agencies that will help you. And of course, if you belong to any special interest group, you know, a veteran, the military, a sorority, a fraternity, the Masons, the Eastern Stars, Veterans of Foreign Wars, NAACP, and a host of others. They're your first line of defense if you belong to any of those organizations. Because once you, again, understand that strength is in numbers. So when you're out there by yourself and you got somebody else or a group that's behind you, then it increases your ability to change your circumstances. Now, here's the practical reality. Today, outright redlining is much less common than it was decades ago, because now it is illegal and is heavily scrutinized. But that doesn't mean that it all was eliminated. Today, most mortgage denials are based on factors such as your income, your debt to income ratio, your employment history, and your, again, down payment amount. And I don't ever have that problem. Hey, Johnny, what's happening? Hey, Shanoy, how are you? And the property condition. But listen, if two equally qualified buyers are treated differently because of race, ethnicity, or the neighborhood involved, that could raise concerns about unlawful discrimination. Now, I know most people like myself, I would think that paying 3 times the rent is unfair, or having to show 3 times the rent is unfair, especially when Keith and DeJoy has already bought up these other expenses that I didn't even think about, you know, your water, your trash, and your lights outside, all that kind of stuff. It can get quite expensive. So I don't think it's fair. But I understand it. It's legal for this reason. In most cases, it's legal for a landlord or property manager to require that an applicant earns 3 times the monthly rent, and that's often called the 3x rent rule. And that's fine, as long as the requirement is applied consistently and does not discriminate against people based on a protected characteristic. The key legal definition is this: income requirements must apply to all, period. It must apply to all. Then it is generally permitted because they are considered a financial qualification standard. Some states and cities also prohibit discrimination based on the source of income, such as housing vouchers. But that rule can vary by location. All right. Now, so landlords use it because housing costs should not consume too much of a tenant's income. That's what they argue when they say they need to see 3 times your rent, because they are arguing that it should not consume all of your income. Higher income reduces the risk of missed rent payments. I think Keith said that. It also provides a clear screening standard for all applicants. So it's a criteria that they use for all applicants. And that's the key thing. It has to apply to everybody. Hey, Maria. All right. Now, many housing advocates argue that the 3-time rent standard can be difficult to meet, especially in markets where rents have risen faster than the wages. We spoke on that. If you got to pay all your money into a rent, then you don't have any money left to live. Dr. Baru, how are you? And me, Medicine, I guess. Hello to you too. All right. Now, but alternatively, some landlords accept larger security deposits where allowed by law. A co-signer or guarantor or proof of substantial savings or assets. So some landlords try to help you, so they make substitutions for those type things. Some even consider strong rental history. A person who doesn't qualify for an apartment because of the strict 3X rule might still qualify for a mortgage if they have good credit. That's what I'm speaking on. Why I put something down if my credit is good. Have manageable debt that you can manage. And have a down payment, which I don't do. So those 3 things can get you in if the landlord is really trying to help. All right? So if most don't qualify for apartments, if you don't qualify to rent an apartment, I would highly suggest home ownership. Even if you're not going to keep it, it's going to be an investment property. And if you get the home, you develop equity in that home. So you're not going to lose money. You're going to always lose when you rent. All right? All right, I'm going to open it up to my co-host because I'm about to conclude here real soon. You got anything you want to add to Georgia?
No, it was very informative to me. I think it put a lot of information out to people that they probably didn't pay attention to. So, I mean, I think this was it was quite a lot of information to absorb, but
Absolutely.
You absorb what you need to absorb and the rest you have to pick up later.
Absolutely. All right, what about you, Keith? You good?
Nah, you covered it all. You got it. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's all about some of this stuff people going to have to go look up, and understand, because I don't think the reason a lot of people are able to get got is because they don't even understand what they're entitled to, what, the framework of even how the situation works.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what really saddens me, because people get over. If you don't know, you don't know. But I think that anybody with good moral intent, they're gonna let you know certain things. They're gonna give you the options rather than just say, okay, I got a sucker here. She don't know or he doesn't know any better, so I'm gonna just get all this money. I can't get with that.
With you.
But anyway, in conclusion, consumers must remain informed and vigilant. And the reason you do that is because you want to make sure that if there are any rules or any new rules that you aren't aware of, and any rules that are being broken, you understand why and you know how to remedy whatever is wrong. I personally hate to see people being taken advantage of. But I know some people, their God is money. And we can't change that. Their God is money. All right? For some of us, we have some values and we have some morals that were engraved in our brains from an early age. So we can't identify with that type of behavior. So you have to stay vigilant. And that ensures that lending decisions are based on legitimate financial qualifications rather than unlawful biases. If you stay vigilant, that ensures that lending decisions are based on legitimate financial qualifications rather than unlawful biases. All right? Well, we thank all 1.2K of y'all again. All of y'all are family. We love you. We appreciate seeing you every week. And again, we'll be here next Wednesday, same time, same place. And we hope that you enjoyed this episode of We Talk. And we will see you all next week. Au revoir, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen, and goodbye. We'll see you all next week. Take care.